Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here back here with another video, and this is going to be the LEGO Star Wars MOC Showcase Episode 9. This is a series I've created to highlight some of the best MOCs I've come across on the internet. So if you feel any of the MOCs in this video are impressive, all I ask is that you go to the links I've included in the description and support the builder by giving them a like, comment, or even a follow. First build we're going to take a look at today is this custom Snowspeeder build by a builder named Kiwi, and he's actually prominently in the live stream chat, so shout out to Lewis. It was a pleasure putting this in this stream, and I hope you're watching this right now. But let's dive into this build. First thing I noticed about it is that the angles are just really nice, specifically that front assembly. I think the use of those sandwich tiles there are perfect, especially to maintain the snot aesthetic. I really do love those pieces. I'm so glad that LEGO came out with them, and I think they work really well from the front end there on that Snowspeeder. So I think that was a really smart decision to do there. I think one of the main draws to this build is actually the brick built cockpit. So a lot of people will probably have some reservations about this. I know a lot of people like to have the cockpits that are, you know, the actual windscreen pieces, even if it means them sacrificing the accuracy of the build. Me personally, I don't mind. Like, if the windscreen works, that's fine, but I'd much rather have a more accurate looking brick built cockpit. So I don't mind seeing something like this at all, and I really think he nails the angles on the side of it. That's one thing that you really don't see too often in Snowspeeders built at this scale. Even the Larry Lars build that I'm always an advocate for in telling people to go build has the windscreen pieces, which means that the sides of the cockpit are completely flat and it's probably not as tall as it should be. So this definitely accomplishes that, and I think it really just does a good job at getting down the overall general shape of the Snowspeeder cockpit. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things he was going for on this MOC. It's something we've been really missing from a lot of Snowspeeder MOCs at this scale, and I think he definitely achieved it. One of the downsides to this is just looking at it, I don't get the impression that you can actually open the cockpit as like one full assembly. I could be totally wrong. If Lewis is in the comments, let me know, but from what I can see here, it does not look like that's the case. So I'm sure down the line that'll probably be something that he is trying to improve on it, as well as I think he mentioned he wanted to figure out a way to add the window that is on the top of the cockpit. But in the meantime, this still looks really good. I think this is a good general direction that we can shift in for these Snowspeeder custom builds. LEGO has clearly shown us they have no interest in giving us an accurate looking Snowspeeder, so it's just wonderful that we have builders out there like Lewis that are willing to pick up some of that slack and give us a model that actually looks quite nice. If we go to the next picture, we can see that the back looks really good as well. I like the use of those 1x2 black modified plates with the rails on them as the fins on the back of the Snowspeeder. And I love the overall shaping of this build, especially him having it on the stand and kind of those action sequences. I really feel it just takes you right back to the Empire Strikes Back, and you can just visualize this thing flying around on the battlefield. One of the other cool things about this build, I think, is the fact that he kind of integrated the red stripe into the flap. Most of the time when people do this, they will, I guess, add like a custom sticker to the build to accomplish this, but I like the idea of having that 1x2 modified red plate there as the connector to the flap. That way you still get, I guess, the quote-unquote illusion of having that red stripe continuing through it, and then you get a flap that is a pretty skinny profile. So I think that's a pretty good compromise between having a sticker there but then also maintaining a pretty thin profile for that flap in general. If we go to the last photo, it's just a general profile shot of the Snowspeeder from the side, and I think this is the one that really got me at just how nice of a build this is, specifically with the general shaping of it. That's one thing that I feel LEGO has kind of been lacking in with the Snowspeeders. They haven't really nailed a lot of the angles, but Lewis has definitely accomplished this here. I also like the fact that the build is mostly snot outside of the wedge plates, which is exactly how it should be. If I built one of these, that's how I would want to do it. I'd want to keep a relatively smooth surface because I feel like the Snowspeeder in general is a smooth looking ship on its surfaces. But then of course, you know, you have the studs on the wedge plates. That's totally fine. There is no shame in doing that. I also believe if you take a closer look at the wings, you can see there's like a 1x1 printed tile. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that was actually used on like a micro or mini version of a Snowspeeder set. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that. Someone can correct me on that, but that's what it looks like to me. It looks like the front of a Snowspeeder. So it's interesting how you can even use, you know, smaller parts from like a miniature version of this on a bigger version of it and still have it look like a really nice detail. Another thing that's actually kind of hard to gather from the back picture of the MOC is the fact that he actually has the fins slanted into the build, which is a really nice detail. That's something that's probably easy to miss if you don't look really closely at the Snowspeeder, but the fact that he incorporated that detail is actually really nice. All in all, I'm just really happy with this build. I think if Lewis ever decides to put the instructions out for this thing, this will definitely do a good job at possibly swaying me over to build some of these in my collection. As much as I love the Larry Lars models, there are just so many newer pieces right now that I think can make an even more accurate Snowspeeder, so we shall see. We shall see. The next build we'll take a look at is a Conveyex build by Jeremy Ley. This is a Conveyex from Vandor and Solo: A Star Wars Story, and I kind of feel like this location is the most mockable location from Solo: A Star Wars Story. I really do enjoy seeing mocks from this general sequence because it was really cool and unique, and whenever people can actually figure out a way to get a rail with the two Conveyex trains on either side of it is always an impressive feat. So I think it's really cool that he actually has like a brick build sign with the Conveyex letters in this build, and I also appreciate the fact that there are Easter eggs. I feel like Easter eggs are something that we don't come across too often in this series. A lot of builders take their builds seriously, and there's really nothing wrong with that, but I certainly appreciate when I can get a nice Easter egg or two in a MOC. And you can see here he has like one of the stormtroopers actually looks like he's constructing the Conveyex sign while the other one's taking like a lunch break on the lower part of the scaffolding, so I thought that was kind of funny. And then they actually have a director filming the scene, which is a hilarious thought. But in terms of the actual build, I think he did a wonderful job on just the construction of the trains. I think they look really nice, especially those front trains. If we go to the next photo, we can get an even better look at the trains, and like I said, I think they just overall look really nice. One of the things I noticed about this build is that none of the figures in this build are actually figures from the sets that we got on Solo, which kind of leads me to believe that he probably built this before those sets even came out, which I think is impressive in itself because it means he didn't really have any design cues from the sets to go off of. And I mean, these builds look, you know, different enough from the sets to where even if it did come out after it, he definitely had enough ingenuity in this build and came up with a lot of this design on his own. If you look in the bottom left corner, you see a build of the Viper probe droid. I think it's actually a really nice build. The next picture we'll have a little bit closer of a look at it, but it does kind of surprise me that Lego opted not to throw one of those in the actual Conveyex set. It would be cool to have one of those unique probe droids there. If we go to the next photo, we can see a front shot of the Conveyex train, and once again, I think it just looks really nice. I think those tread pieces on the front of it are like perfect for the Conveyex train. That's like exactly what that looks like, so it's cool that people are utilizing those pieces for that. I'm also kind of intrigued at how he got the actual supports to work. Like, there's part of that mountain, and I would assume maybe part of the structure that connects to the rail is actually in that mountain. It's so hard to tell, but like the support structures that he has on the outsides of it, I can't really determine whether or not those are like functional or if they're just there purely for aesthetics. But either way, this MOC is a little bit of an illusion, so there's a little mystique to it, and I think that's pretty cool. I mean, the Conveyex in itself is a pretty otherworldly thing, you know, having a train on opposite sides of a train track going through mountains. So it's cool to see what people can come up with to try to make that work and with our real world Lego bricks. If we go to the final photo, we get actually a really nice action shot of this MOC. It's always so nice when you can, you know, set up a MOC like this where you can get some really nice action shots in it, whether it be memorable things or scenes from the film or just things that you came up with on your own that just make really nice looking Lego photos. I'm actually like really in love with the technique he used using that trans clear, I don't even know what you'd call it. It's like a 1x8 piece, but it's mostly a bar, but it has that ring on it where you can throw in one of the lightsaber blades and actually have like the laser suspended in air as to give the illusion that he's firing off multiple blasts, and I actually like that quite a bit. It's a shame that there's not really a straightforward way to do this in most cases, but I think integrating that piece there actually looks really nice, and it contributes quite a bit to this action shot right here. This is like phone background or desktop wallpaper worthy. I mean, if someone were to Photoshop an actual background to this, I think that would just look freaking incredible. So all around, wonderful job on the MOC. I think that this MOC is just a really good idea. You know, it's really easy to do a big leg out of Vandor and maybe even have the train track be very expansive, but I think to just have it kind of contained here and just be able to display the train with the action scenes that are going on top of it, I think makes a really nice MOC that someone can do and put on a shelf and certainly appreciate. So there's another MOC idea for you guys. And here we have this week's photography base build. The title is Luke Falls for the Trap, and the builder is Michael Lepard. I like this build a lot because, one, it shows people utilizing the new elements and figures that we got from the Betrayal at Cloud City set. I was really happy when the set came out because I felt it meant we were getting more MOCs based on Cloud City. So here is one of them. He has those printed, actually they're not printed, they're stickers. Of course they're stickers. Those stickered pieces that are like the Cloud City Bespin wall pattern in the background. You have Luke in the foreground, kind of in the shadows, and of course Boba Fett walking down the hallway with some of the other protagonists I imagine would be following behind him. And I don't know, I just really like this scene. Like I mentioned on the last MOC that it was worthy of a desktop wallpaper, and I feel like this one certainly is as well. I don't know, for me, like this kind of looks like something straight out of a brick film, so just looking at it kind of just makes my imagination go off and thinking and seeing, I guess, more of these scenes kind of replicated in Lego. So I really feel like this is an imagination provoking fixture, to say the least, and I think the lighting is actually really good as well. The fact that he has like the actual lighting kind of coming from the outside of the MOC beyond those 1x2 trans clear plates at the top, I think really does set the tone very well. It gives you a feeling of actually being like right there in the room with these two guys. And as with most of these photography builds, like the actual techniques of the build aren't super advanced, they aren't anything groundbreaking, but things like lighting, positioning really do just make something like this pop and look really appeasing to the eye. So hope you guys appreciate this week's photography based build. This next MOC is one I've been wanting to put in this series for a long time, and it is the showdown between Darth Maul and Pre Vizsla as they attempt to figure out who is going to be the new leader of Death Watch, and the builder is Ben Cossy. I've had one of these builds on this series before, which is kind of why I wanted to space it apart, and this one kind of ended up coming a lot later than it should have, but man, I just love this build so much. Ben always does a wonderful job on these vignettes, and this build is definitely no exception. I think the fact that this is a contained build, like it looks like it's on a 48x48 base plate, and people are always looking for things like this to build that are contained but can really get across an effective scene and allow you to employ many wonderful build techniques. People are always asking me, you know, what's a smaller scale MOC I can do? And I mean, you don't have to build giant MOCs like I end up doing most of the time to get something that looks really, really nice. So enough about all that, let's actually talk about the build. So the thing that really stuck out to me is probably that fire in the foreground. I feel like it just pops so much. The fact that he connected them using the little knobs that are on the side of the fire looks really nice. I always love when people use that technique, actually. I feel like it's not a very well-known technique, but when people do it, it looks really good. And then there's like the fire cluster at the very bottom of it that kind of looks like the fire is hitting the surface. I don't know, I really like the aesthetic of it. It's a really realistic looking flamethrower effect using those fire pieces. One of the things I've mentioned before, and I'll continue to mention, is I feel like replicating natural things like fire can be really difficult in Lego, so when people do it effectively, I have to give them credit for it. The general surface of the ground has some like 1x1 round plates as well as 1x1 round tiles, and 2x2 tiles that all together I think just makes a really nice looking stone pattern. And this is also another one of those MOCs where minifigure positioning is key. Like I don't know, just the way that all the Mandalorians are gathered around the fight, and he has many recognizable characters. He even got a custom Bo-Katan sitting at the front, which is pretty cool. I don't know, I think it just makes it look like a really nice and lively MOC. One of the things that I had to mention is if you look on that back wall, the usage of many different trans orange and possibly even some trans red pleat pieces to make like the stained glass right behind the throne, I think just looks absolutely incredible. Like the pattern in there is just awesome, and it looks like some of them may be snot as well. They aren't just stacked on top of each other, but there's some really cool techniques to make a nice pattern in there. And I mean, I can't even imagine like what a pain it might have been to try to figure that out and incorporate it into that wall back there, but it certainly looks really good. One of the other things, it's kind of a small detail and I feel like it's easy to miss, but it's something that's kind of cool. If you look right above that stained glass window, he actually uses minifigure legs as part of the details in the wall, which I think is actually kind of cool. You know, I mentioned, I think the last week, whenever the Boga build I was reviewing, and I mean, he used various different minifigure limbs as for details that weren't for minifigures, and this MOC is no exception. I'm gonna try my best to highlight when people use like minifigure limbs as details for MOCs. It's something, like I said before, that I typically don't really do. Like outside of hands, I don't find myself using minifigure parts, but these guys are very creative and give me new building ideas every time I review these MOCs. I also just like the way that the leaves look that are going across the back of the wall. There really aren't any groundbreaking techniques in that. I just really like the way they look. All in all, I think this is a lovely MOC of a very memorable scene. Minifigure placement is on point, and the action at the front of the MOC I think just looks absolutely incredible. So once again, Ben, you did an amazing job. And this week's premiere MOC is by a builder by the name of Ice Cream Clone, and it is a carbon freeze chamber complete with LED lights all throughout this thing. Man, this build just looks so incredible. This is one that I actually did find a while back, but I didn't want to make it just one of the middle MOCs. I wanted to make this a premiere MOC, so it got pushed back to this episode, and I'm glad I can finally talk about this thing because it's just so freaking cool. I think this is probably one of the best scenes to use with lights in a MOC. Like the just carbon freezing chamber location in general has some of the best lighting in all of Star Wars, so when people can incorporate that with a Lego MOC that looks this good, I think it's a win-win situation. So in terms of the build techniques, it's hard not to first talk about the glowing orange lights under the platform that they're standing on. And I mean, I'm sure it's pretty simple. You know, if you just throw an LED down there, you can get the illuminating effect, but it is just always so effective when people can pull this off, and it looks really nice on MOCs. As much as I like the Betrayal on Cloud City set, I really don't think it does this scene justice. Like, in all honesty, I would probably rather just have a big build of this scene displayed than having the entire Betrayal on Cloud City displayed, because I feel like this is the most iconic location inside of Cloud City that we visit, and the scene that this person has replicated is just incredible. I think one of the coolest things about this MOC is that he actually has Chewie over there in the background with C-3PO on his back. Unfortunately, we've never got a minifig of that, but it looks like he just used maybe some rubber bands to tie up parts of C-3PO or on the back of Chewie, and I don't know, I just like that a lot. That's something that I would love just for Lego to actually do in a set, but until then, it's nice to see people taking creative liberties and making it happen themselves. I think that a lot of the like general machinery and greebling in this build actually looks really nice. I think the pipes going everywhere look really good. Anytime people can incorporate pipes into a MOC, I feel makes a big difference there. Very dynamic type of part. You can kind of have them go any which way. You're not really limited to the basic Lego shapes. So I just think those add a lot to a MOC. I also like that area down below where the Ugnaught is standing. I think the greebling on the walls looks really good. I mentioned this before, but like greebling is something on a MOC that it's not something that's very straightforward, right? Like you gotta kind of be creative with it unless you really want to go into the nitty-gritty of the details and replicate exactly what you see on film, which I feel most people probably don't do. So whenever you can pull off greebling and have it look realistic and convincing, I think that is a really good accomplishment in a MOC. The next photo is just a closer look at the platform that they're all standing on. You can see he has Chewbacca freaking out over there on the side. Lando is checking on Han, making sure he is still alive and in perfect hibernation in the carbon freezing chamber. And it looks like, is that a chrome Darth Vader chilling over there? Holy crap, that is quite the flex for this MOC, but well deserved, well deserved. And man, I love this so much. Like, this is such a wonderful looking MOC. It's a great idea if you want to incorporate lights into a MOC, and I really would like to see more people try to tackle something like this. And for a first time ever on this series, we actually have a video of the MOC. So here, this guy actually posted this on Flickr, and I would be remiss if I didn't include it, but you can see that he actually basically has like a pulsing effect for the lights in the bottom of the platform, and I think that is just so freaking incredible. Like, if you didn't want to have one of these displayed in your home before, I would have to say you probably would now. Like, if you guys were wondering why I'd prefer having just a build of this over having maybe a build of an entire Cloud City that is around the same size, this is the biggest reason. Like, how could you not want something like this? This is just, this makes me so giddy. Like, I may have to do a Cloud City MOC sooner rather than later just to incorporate something like this into it, because it is just so aesthetically pleasing. And that's going to finish up this week's episode of the showcase, guys. I hope you enjoyed checking out these wonderful MOCs with me. Like I always say, if you found any of the MOCs in this video particularly impressive, just go ahead and support the builders. That is all I'm asking of you guys. Check out the links in the description. Drop a like, follow, or comment on their posts. They would certainly appreciate it, and I would as well. They certainly deserve the credit. Also, if you like what I do, go ahead and support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.